Hello, this is how to build KDE software using kde-builder, the KDE building framework. On Fedora KDE 44, this is a fresh installation of Fedora KDE 44. We're going to go to the kde.org official KDE community website, get involved in the top main menu. In here, we're going to select how to contribute by being a developer. And we're going to use kde-builder. So kde-builder is a build framework. If you want to build a KDE graphical user interface application, you're probably also going to want to build many other KDE Git repositories that contain KDE frameworks or other KDE libraries. Why you're building KDE software from a Git repository using kde-builder? Because you want to see the newest and greatest version of the software. Maybe you want to see if a bug has been fixed. In this example, we use the KDE graphical user interface application KCalc, which is the desktop calculator. That looks like this. First of all, we're going to install this framework, kde-builder, which knows that KCalc depends on many other KDE Git repositories and creates a dependency tree between the dependencies and builds the dependencies in the correct order. The last one KDE Git repository to be built is KCalc itself. This tool doesn't require sudo powers. It only writes to the home directory of the current user. So we're going to download a file named initial_setup.sh, which we're going then to run using bash. Asks for the sudo password to install this list of packages, git, and then 3 Python modules. With their dependencies. So that was step 1. Step 2 is we should make sure that ~/.local/bin is in the path environment variable. Let's see if this directory actually exists. So it exists because this is where the Git repository for KDE-builder was git cloned and a symlink was created. Let's look at the path environment variable. It has ~/.local/bin at the very start, which is correct. At this point, kde-builder was git cloned, is a Python application, nothing needs to be built, and it's an executable script which is available in ~/.local/bin directory, which means that if we just write kde-builder, the executable should be found correctly. So kde-builder generate config. Okay, let's look a bit at this configuration file. Ctrl+Shift+C. Let's see if we have Kate. We don't. We have kwrite. So you should probably keep the default values in this configuration file. Some of the most commonly changed things in here is to change the CMake build type from rel with debinfo to debug if you want to use the debugger such as GDB or an integrated development environment. If you want debug symbols and you also don't want build optimizations by the C++ compilers. And maybe you want to use less CPU threads. So this is a virtual machine, has 14 vCPU threads. I'm going to lower the number of CPU cores to be used, CPU threads to be used, to just 12. So I'm going to keep 2 vCPUs, hopefully not used by kde-builder. And its children processes, its tree of processes. And I'm going to keep all of the rest of the settings. So only just one change. Line 32 replaced the string auto with 12, 1, 2. Next up, we're going to install a number of RPM packages from this Linux operating system, Fedora KDE 44, thousands of packages. So we have in here Qt 5 packages, Qt 6 packages, X libraries, audio, video encode, decode libraries, compression libraries, etc. So these are RPM binary packages for Qt version 5 and 6 and other dependencies of KDE software, except KDE software. So not RPM files for KDE software, but for other software. This is a good place to remember that we should actually upgrade our Linux operating system before installing kde-builder. So just run a full upgrade of the RPM packages on Fedora KDE 44 before installing kde-builder. Otherwise, installing thousands of RPM packages might not work correctly, might also take the needed time to upgrade existing packages. So do save yourself a bit of grief by installing all of the possible updates before installing kde-builder. Installing RPM packages from the Linux operating system has finished. Next up, we should start building one of the KDE Git repositories. So in this case, we're using kcalc. kde-builder, when instructed to build kcalc, will actually perform a git clone of the KDE Git repository kcalc and build from the git master branch. And then, using the default kde-builder configuration, it's going to build all of the other KDE Git repositories that are needed by kcalc. So this is optional. In the kde-builder configuration, you can turn this behavior off, such that when you go kde-builder kcalc, it only builds kcalc. I actually like this default configuration. When I build a KDE Git repository from Git master branch, I actually do want all of the other dependencies to also be very, very fresh. But this requires Git cloning and building 29 Git repositories, mostly from the KDE community and mostly KDE frameworks. Some are Git repositories not from the KDE community. Some of these Git repositories are ones that use Qt 6. So we have installed Qt 6 from the binary RPM packages from the Linux operating system at this step. And then there are some libraries that use Qt 6, but are not part of the KDE community. And some of these are also being built at this step. So it's going to take a while. We have built 6 Git repositories out of 29. When I want to build extra correctly kcalc or other KDE Git repository, I have some of my own instructions. This is my wiki page and mariusp.github.io, the last link in here. And this is the way I do it. I disable Python bindings because I don't use them. I enable cmake build type debug because I actually use a debugger. I ignore all of the projects that kde-builder will build that are not part of the KDE community but require Qt 6. Because these are optional. The needed .h files include files and other build configuration files are already installed correctly at the previous step, at this step for these libraries that are optional to be built again using kde-builder. Okay, and then I don't actually start by building kcalc. I'm building the module kconfig first, which is one of the very first modules that gets built when you run kde-builder -kcalc, just to make sure that kde-builder was installed correctly, all of the dependencies are installed correctly, it's in the path environment variable, the executable kd-builder, the configuration file for kde-builder is okay, everything works. Network connectivity works, etc. Then I'm going to build kcalc, but at this point, if I run kcalc using kde-builder, the process kcalc is going to have some of the KDE files come from /usr, so from Fedora 44 RPM binary packages. Some are going to come from the files that are being built and installed by the framework kde-builder. So for instance, for K internationalization, which is a KDE framework, KI18N, kde-builder will do a git clone in this directory, tilde/kd/src/ki18n, builds in this directory, tilde/kd/build/ki18n, and then it installs that into a similar tree structure for directories as /usr, but this one inside the home directory of the current user under the directory tilde/kd/usr. This way, when you run the equivalent of GNU make install, you don't actually write files to /usr, but you actually write files inside your home directory in tilde/kd/usr. So some of the files when you run at this step kcalc are going to come from here, tilde/kd/usr, the ones that were built using kde-builder. The other KDE files, for instance, .so files, will come from /usr. And that has been a source of issues, at least in my experience. That's why I prefer to build all of the possible KDE Git repositories that are a dependency of kcalc using kde-builder, and only then run kcalc, the one built using kde-builder again. So for that, I'm going to additionally build +/- integration, which is a number of KDE Git repositories regarding to Qt widgets themes, QML themes, icon themes, color schemes, etc. And then I'm also going to build all of the other KDE frameworks that were not built by this invocation of kde-builder kcalc. So this one only builds 20 KDE frameworks, whereas this invocation builds 80. And then I also had issues where the process that I run using kde-builder --run will try to use, for instance, /usr/bin/kd-open, which is a problem that doesn't really work okay. So I also additionally build the KDE Git repository kd-cli-tools using kde-builder. And only then maybe most of the KDE files inside the kcalc process come from my home directory, not from /usr. At this point, we know how to install kde-builder in a fresh installation of Fedora KDE, Linux operating system. We know how to build individual KDE Git repositories and their dependency KDE Git repositories. We know how to run an executable that was built at the previous step. So the kcalc executable, which is tilde/kd/usr/bin/kcalc, was built at this step. And we're going to run it at this step using command line kd-builder space --run, and then the name of the executable. Additional things that we can use kde-builder for. We can, for instance, download or git clone the KDE Git repositories needed by kcalc without building anything. And that would be kd-builder space kcalc with the command line parameters --src -only, for instance. So there are a number of command line parameters for the executable kd-builder, --no src, which --src only, which only does git clone and other git operations, --no -src, which doesn't do any git operations, --refresh build that builds all of the modules that have all of the rebuilds all of the modules. So I usually pair refresh -build with --no -include -dependencies, such that I only rebuild completely, for instance, kcalc, not all of the other 28 other Git repositories. Okay, we have a chapter building KDE software using kde-builder, and a chapter for troubleshooting if you, for some reason, don't manage to build a KDE Git repository using kde-builder. So if kde-builder and kd-builder and then space the name of an KDE Git repository fails to build. Let's see some of these possible issues first. So do make sure again that you've installed the more than 1000 RPM binary packages that are installed by this step in the procedure to install kde-builder. So kde-builder space --install -distro -packages. And then if you're trying to build kcalc and then you have a cmake configure error that some dependency is missing, which should not be the case, because you're on Fedora, you can use such a command line sudo dnf build dep and then kcalc in our example. If the cmake configure step fails, you can look at the actual text of the failure, because kde-builder will save all of the output of the cmake configure command to a text file and tell you the path of that log text file. Open that in any text editor, and if it says something like could not find something related to a CMake module. Then either guess the name of the RPM package that contains the devel package for this, in this case, text widgets. So do something similar to DNF search text widgets all lowercase and then grep minus devel. Or you can tell DNF to install package config and then within round parentheses text widgets. Or there's a similar support for CMake. When you use DNF install, you tell it, hey, install all of the RPM packages that provide the CMake file for this package, or the package config file for this package. So this is how you search, DNF search, and then parts of the name of the package. On Fedora, you probably want -devel packages. On other operating systems, you probably want -dev packages on Ubuntu and Debian. The name of the package might differ between Linux operating systems and between Qt versions. So for KDE frameworks, for Qt versions, DNF provides and then CMake and then the name of the string that you saw previously. So, this thing. We'll install the KF6 text widgets -devel. What's the name of the RPM package? That actually contains the CMake file for this CMake package. And then the equivalent for package config, DNF provides package config and then the string that you find when CMake configure step fails. If it's missing a file, such an executable, and it says the name of the file, then you might search either just put the name of the executable in a search or put the full path of the executable in a search. And for Fedora, you do that with DNF, for instance, provides. Okay, so that was troubleshooting when KDE builder fails to build a KDE Git repository because mostly of CMake configure issues. If a KDE Git repository used to build a number of days ago, now it doesn't build, sometimes you just need to rebuild or this entire Git repository or all of the other dependencies, for instance, in this example with kcalc. So you do that by, in the case of there's a build error, something in C++ for kcalc. So what you could do is find the build directory for kcalc, which should be in here, ~kd/build/kcalc, and delete that. There's the kd-builder command line parameter --refresh -build. Make sure to not rebuild everything if not needed. First, just rebuild kcalc. If that is not enough, you might, I don't know, delete the entire ~kd/build directory or just rename it. And then do kd-builder space kcalc and then go --refresh -build. And that will do a refresh build, so a rebuild, a clean and then configure and then build and then install for kcalc and all of its other dependencies. Sometimes you just need to rename the entire ~kd/usr directory. But a very important thing to do is you should connect to the KDE community. There's a metrics channel for people that want to start contributing to the KDE community. And you should be a member of that metrics room. And if something doesn't work with your usage of KDE Builder, you should definitely ask there. And that is being detailed in here in the Get Involved wiki page, chapter contacting the community. And you should create for yourself a metrics account, which is similar to a other chat application, such as, I know, WhatsApp or Slack. And the name of the channel is KDE New Contributors. And channels in metrics are named rooms. Follow the instructions on how to create a metrics account and then how to connect to this metrics room. So we're at this step. We have built 29 KDE Git repositories, not only KDE ones. Now we can run the first time kcalc. So again, this time some of the files that are loaded in the process kcalc are going to come from /usr, some from ~/kd/usr. And what I aim is to have most of the files coming from ~/kd/usr. For those purposes, I'm going to additionally build this module ± integration, then build all of these modules, all of the KDE frameworks, and then also build KDE CLI tools. Let's see how that thing looks like in a single incantation. Let's see if it works. I didn't try this before. So ± integration, all of the frameworks, and then KDE-CLI-tools. Should be 80 or 90 modules to build, 85 modules. Some of these are KDE frameworks that have been built before at this step when we said KDE-builder kcalc. It's going to take a while. I recommend a beefy hardware computer or a beefy virtual machine. I have allocated plenty of random access memory to this computer. It's a virtual machine. 14 vCPUs and, I don't know, 15 gigabytes of random access memory. We're doing C++ compilation, and we're using many threads to build. We're using Ninja. All of the possible CPU threads are being used to build, and there's large random access memory requirements per each compiler instance, which means per each of the CPU threads that we have configured in the configuration file for KDE Builder. By default, all of the CPU threads are being used. I'm not sure exactly what's the math behind the correlation between CPU thread numbers and the random access amounts needed. But certainly more than 1 gigabyte per CPU thread. Yeah, sometimes builds might, I don't know, not work correctly, crash, because not enough random access memory is available. Do make sure that you have a swap enabled. KDE Builder itself has various updates. It's a KDE Git repository. It's running straight from the Git master branch. So from time to time, you want to run this command line, KDE-builder space --self -update, to make sure that the KDE Git repository of KDE Builder is being refreshed on your computer. And then the new files, the new Python files are being used when you run kde-builder. Okay, let's see the chapter building KDE software with kde-builder. We have edited the configuration file, which lives at tilde/.config/kde-builder.yaml. Include dependencies is true by default. There's command line parameter -no -include -dependencies, such that when you build kcalc with this command line parameter, it only builds kcalc, not any of the other 28 Git repositories that are dependencies of kcalc. This is how you build the simplest possible syntax, just the very short name of the Git repository, kcalc, and then kd-builder, the executable. If you want to run, there's kd-builder, then --run, and then the name of the executable. Very often, the name of the executable is actually the name of the KDE Git repository, not always. And these are advanced topics that I have never followed. You can build the entire KDE Plasma desktop. You can install a KDE Plasma Wayland session in your desktop manager, so in SDDM or in the Plasma Login Manager, desktop manager. So you can build an entire KDE Plasma desktop and applications and everything. All gets installed to tilde/kde/usr, and then you just restart your computer, for instance, and in the desktop manager, in SDDM or in Plasma Login Manager, you select the newly added KDE Plasma 6 Wayland development session, and then you're logged into very fresh bits of everything of KWindow, Window Manager, X11 Window Manager, Wayland Compositor, the Plasma Shell, the Start menu, Tab Switcher, many applications, KDE frameworks, system settings, etc., etc. There are other products from the KDE community. There's Plasma Mobile, and you can use kde-builder to build projects that are not known to kde-builder. Maybe you have a project that you're working on and just you just invented that KDE projects that, I know, a graphical user interface application for Linux that uses KDE frameworks version 6, and you want to build all of the KDE frameworks on their latest version using kde-builder. But then you also want your application that you're developing to use the exact same versions of the binary files of KDE frameworks version 6. So you want your app, when you run it, when you build it, to use the files from tilde/kde/usr/include/lib, etc. /b. This is how you do it. You edit the configuration file tilde/.config/kde-builder.yaml, and at the very end you add something like this. You can build multiple KDE Git repositories by specifying the names on the same command line of KDE-builder. If you're contributing to a KDE Git repository, you probably want to create a Git commit, put it in a Git branch dedicated to that Git commit, and that will become the source for a GitLab merge request. Work/your username is a good way to name your Git branch that then you're going to use for the GitLab merge request. if you change the source code of kcalc, you should make sure that KDE-builder doesn't change anything in tilde/kd/src/kcalc, because that's where your new changes live. Probably if you create a git commit and then a branch, your change will not get lost, but safest is to just use the command line parameter -no -src to all your incantations of kde-builder and then kcalc to make sure nothing touches your Git repository. If you're creating a Git branch and point it to your newly created Git commit, then probably nothing can actually remove that Git commit, because the Git commit will not be garbage collected. There's a ref pointing to it. Sometimes you need to use forks before you get a KDE developer account. A good name for the fork is called fork for the Git remote. If you want to see what kde-builder would do, but don't actually want to do CMake configure actions or building or installing, there's the command line parameter -pretend or -dry -run. No src keeps your source code changes intact. There's no git operations happening, because kde-builder by default, if you don't touch the git branches of the clones of the git repositories that kde-builder has created, kde-builder will make sure that all of the other git repositories have the local git master branch pointing to the remote origin master branch. When it does things like this, where are you? When it says fetching remote changes to the git repository name and then merging notifications, merging changes to the from the branch master, and then no changes to the source code found. So these are git operations, which make sure that the branches are always up to date. And then there's also the git operations where a git repository does not exist locally and it's being git cloned. No include dependencies, no src, run, and refresh build. This guy, -refresh -build. Okay, so now you know how to build KDE Git repositories. You don't know how to write to the KDE Git repositories. You know how to read from them, how to build, how to run. The next step, in my opinion, is to be able to work on this source code by learning how to run the generated binaries. So using either the kde-builder -run command line parameter, or by sourcing the prefix file from the build directory. So this file. Where is kcalc? So the incantation looks like this. You go source tilde/kd/build kcalc and then prefix. This sets some environment variables. And now when we try to run kcalc, instead of running the kcalc from /usr/bin, it will prefer to run the kcalc from tilde/kd/usr/bin, and it's also going to load the correct files from tilde/kd/usr, not from /usr. And under the hood, kd-builder -run kcalc actually does these two lines: source ~kd/build/kcalc/prefix.sh, and then runs the executable that you provided as the third parameter. You could try to use an integrated development environment. I know how to use the integrated development environments Qt Creator and CLion from JetBrains. Many people use Kate, which is a text editor with advanced features from the KDE community, to develop KDE software. So how that works, if you don't actually use an integrated development environment and you use an editor such as Kate or Emacs or Vim, is that you do your building using an incantation probably like this one, kd-builder kcalc, or the name of the Git repository that you're working on, -src, -include, -dependencies, and -refresh, -build. So that's building. You do running like this, and then you just edit the source code. So edit the source code, build and install, and then run. If you have build errors, I would suggest that you use google.com/AI. It's a website, it's free. It knows how to troubleshoot your build issues. So if you have C++ compiler issues, build warnings, or build errors. If you want to use an integrated development environment, yeah, that's going to be a bit more complicated. And maybe for people that have programmed in C++ on Linux before starting to program for the KDE community. And then the next step would be to edit the KDE Git repositories. So not just read from KDE Git repositories, but actually to write to those. So the KDE community uses GitLab, a GitLab instance installed on premise. So we're not using the software as a service offering gitlab.com, but invent.key.org. You should find the Git repository of the KDE application or library that you want to work on in here. You should know it's where it exists under https://invent.key.org. And then you should start to create online accounts. You will need an email account. You need a box.key.org account, which is actually a issue tracker for the users of the KDE software. Then you need to create an account at the single sign-on, which is called identity.key.org. With that single sign-on, then you will be able to connect to the GitLab instance, which is invent.key.org. You will need to have a real name and an email that you have used when you have created the single sign-on account at identity.key.org. We use two-factor authentication. You're going to go to the GitLab user that you have created at this step and create a pair of SSH keys, or private public pair. At first, you will not be able to write to existing KDE Git repositories. You will need to first press the fork button inside GitLab, so being logged in with your KDE identity account. you're going to press the fork button. It's going to create a fork of that GitLab project in your namespace. Must be public. And then you git clone the repository. So the repository will have, you will probably build, for instance, kcalc using kde-builder first, which will git clone from the official Git repository. And then you'll have your own fork. And then you will want to add your fork as a git remote to your to the git clone that kde-builder did in tilde/kd/src/kcalc directory. The incantation is to go to your fork and in GitLab code and then copy the SSH URL. Make sure you have your SSH key on your computer. And then git remote add fork and then paste this URL. Git remote -v should show two remotes, one named origin and the other named fork. You cannot actually write to git remotes with protocol HTTP, but you can to those git remotes that use git protocol. Create a git commit, create a branch, check out that branch. Make sure the name of the branch starts with work. You might want to say that your git commit fixes a bug in the issue tracker. There's a way to do that correlation. You don't push to the origin if you can't. You push to the fork if that's where you can push to. So git push fork. And this is the name of the branch. So that should be, I know, work / your username and then what you did. After you push to your fork, GitLab will offer to create a merge request from your fork to the git master branch of the remote origin. But you're already in the KDE matrix room for new contributors, and you should ask more guidance in there. Make sure you allow members to change your commits. Yeah, and these are advanced scenarios. And that's about all there is to know about how to install and run kde-builder, the kde-build framework, on a fresh installation of Fedora KDE. Do make sure that you have installed all of the packages for the RPM packages using DNF before installing KDE-builder. So kde-builder, use it for doing read operations from Git repositories, so Git cloning and building software and running it. That's useful, for instance, if you're a tester and you want to know if a Git commit fixes a Bugzilla bug, as the Git commit text says. If you have encountered an issue, it's maybe a good idea to run very fresh KDE source code from the Git master branch, for instance, by using a recent KDE Linux operating system or KDE Neon operating system, or by building software from source using from Git master branches using kde-builder. To make sure that the bug that you're encountering can still be reproduced using just Git master branches, and then you should actually report it to KDE Bugzilla. If you cannot reproduce it, then maybe you still want to create a bug report, but in there you will say, using the latest KDE Git repositories, master branches, I could not reproduce the issue, but I could reproduce it on this version of this operating system. And then once you want to move after that phase where you just read from KDE Git repositories, you want to actually write to Git repositories, there's an entire KDE wiki page that tells you step by step what you need to do. And do make sure you're in the matrix room to ask for additional advice. Thank you.